So what does it really mean to be a part of a team? I use this word team a lot. I've come across this word team so much. In fact, it's the foundation of my upbringing in men's work and men's legacy circles. This idea of having a men's team. We've always been very deliberate to use that word team instead of words like group or circles, because the men that I spend time with, we felt like the words group and circles was less formal. It doesn't really indicate that there's a collection of people who are up to something together. It's less formal, it's more loose and not as committal. And for those of the men that I spend time with, we want to be a part of something where we're committed and invested to each other. Because we recognize that that's really the only way that we take how we're showing up in our lives to a whole another level. So what does it mean to be on a team? Because we have teams all over the place, right? There's the obvious realm of sports and athletics where we have sports teams. There's business teams and departments. There's teams of people for other things, recreational things, clubs, etc. But when we're really using this word team, and we're using it effectively to raise standards and raise performance of a collection of individuals simultaneously, what does that really require? How many of us actually have a context for what it means to be on a team that drives us to be our best? I grew up playing sports, all of them, every single one, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, you name it. And there is a phrase in youth sports especially that I think everybody's probably heard of, that there's no I in team. And the reason they said there's no I in team is because I stood for individual. One of the most important and critical lessons about teamwork is that we must lose the identity of self in favor of the greater. And this theme, this motif, translates over to so many different relevant areas and domains of life, in my opinion. You think about the village, you think about a community, you think about the human body as an organism. There's no one organ or specific part of the body that wants all of the attention and all the accolades. No, it functions together as a unit. So this idea of removing individuality from team, removing individual identity and the need for significance so that a team can truly thrive as an entity is so important. And it's something that I don't find in many places that I see men doing this work nowadays. And I've come across this myself too, because for most of us, either we don't have that high standard of context when it comes to team, or when you actually think about it, each one of us is off in our lives fighting our own battles. So we have to bring significance and infuse significance into what it means to be on a team. And this is what I want to talk about here today. Many men who are already a part of the Rising Man community are part of fire circle teams, where we're very deliberate and intentional about men bringing your personal vision and having a collective vision for the team in that space. This is, in my opinion, the best of both worlds. Because when one man succeeds on a team, when one man on my team is winning in his life, that's a win for all of us. Because every man on that team has given his blood, sweat, tears, and energy to help that man become who he says he wants to be. That's a team win right there. It's an individual win and a team win. Some good examples, if you look into the sports world, is somebody gets voted the MVP of the National Basketball Association, right? This year, I think it was Giannis. He got voted as the MVP of the entire league. And one of the first acknowledgments he made was to his teammates, to the coaches, to every single member of that organization, because everybody had a role to play in that individual recognition that he was able to achieve. Of course, his name's the one on the trophy, but there's a lot of people who are behind that. And so thinking about this essence of what it means to be on a team, sometimes it's hard because we're not actually operating in the world as a team, so to speak. Right? Especially in this world of virtual Zoom calls and connecting with people where we're not exactly in the same geographical location. Even in our neighborhoods and communities, we're so accustomed to this isolated way of being that we don't know what it looks like to interweave our lives at such a depth like professional athletes do. Right? If you think about the Golden State Warriors, for example, they're in the facility 8 hours a day, every single day of the week during the season. They probably see each other and spend more time with each other than they do with their families. You hear athletes talk about that all the time. That's why they have an off season, because that's when they actually get to see their families. But the things that are possible with a well-oiled and well-orchestrated team, when they're spending that amount of time together and they're fully investing not just in themselves, but in the self that contributes to the greater entity, that's when you have dynasties. That's when you have teams that stand out in the record books over the course of history, teams that have been remembered over decades now, over hundreds and thousands of other players and teams coming in and out of the league. There's teams that stood out because they had that intangible essence of being a part of something. It's this part of our lives where we as men, we get to acknowledge at some point that my life is not my own. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my community. It belongs to my family. It belongs to the people who I serve. That would be like the heart saying it's the most important organ in the body and it should be prioritized and spoken about before everything else. But the heart can't function without the brain, and the brain and the heart can't function without the blood, and the blood doesn't have a purpose if the lungs aren't oxygenating it and sending it through the body. And we could say the same for every single cell of this entire human organism, that it wouldn't function properly if every single part of it wasn't working together and playing its role. So this idea of team, the spirit of being on a team, is so underutilized, especially in the men's workspace, because we come and we spend a little time together for 90 minutes on a call, and then we go our separate ways. We spend 3 days at a workshop together, and then we go our separate ways. And from the very beginning, what we've been building here at Rising Man is culture that lasts, relationships that we give time to develop. Because when you give time to those relationships and you invest in them over and over and over and over again, we start to learn about each other. Just like athletes on these incredible teams have over the years. You think of the Michael Jordan and the Scottie Pippens. Think of the Klay Thompsons and the Steph Currys, right? These combinations, these duos that are remembered because of the hours and the reps that they put in. Now, of course, we don't get to see those hours and repetitions put in, but we see the result of it on game day. And the same can be true for your life. If you're not connecting with humans in that type of way, where you're getting accountability, you're getting encouragement, you're getting inspiration, motivation, and the opportunity to serve and give that right back to the other man who's sitting next to you, or maybe the man who's on the other side of the screen with those of us who are in virtual men's teams. If you're not giving and receiving that at the highest level, then you're leaving something on the court. You're leaving a little bit left in the tank. Why not utilize that opportunity to fully draw from and give everything back to that experience so that each of you, everyone on your team, gets to win in his life? That's the call to action here. For those of you who are not a part of a team, then you're missing out because you're playing like a whole basketball game and you're the only man on the court. You don't have anybody to pass to. You don't have anybody to do some of your plays or dribble off of, or anybody to set a pick for you. If you're the only one on the court going up against a 5-man press, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to succeed. Similarly, if you're on the court with 4 other people that you never talk to, that you don't really know, that you're not willing to talk about the weaknesses and the strengths of your game with, then you're going to get on the court and you're going to be underprepared when you face the greatest challenges and obstacles of your life. So what does it mean to be on a team? To be on a team means to give all of yourself to the other people who are part of that team. To dissolve the identity that needs to stand out, that needs to be significant, that's insidiously competing with the other members of your team. You have to forget that this is not an individual sport, but a team effort, and that when one man wins, we all win and we all get to share in that. It requires that level of selflessness and commitment to make the men on your team matter, to care about them, to think about them outside of just your calls and meetings that you have. And I promise you, because I know I've been connected with the same team of men every other week for the past 10 years. Guess where I go first when I face the biggest challenges of my life? You guessed it. And honestly, it's one of the strongest containers I've ever been a part of. And I've been a part of a lot. I've seen a lot. And the one thing that all these containers are missing is a strong connection to team, an agreed upon way of how we are together. So I want you to consider this. If you're not yet part of a team, we've got an opportunity for you to be a part of our Fire Circle community, where you get assigned to a team and you get to develop relationship and rapport with your other team members. If you're already a part of a team, where can you bring your effort and raise the standard higher for the people that you're involved with? Whether it's your men's team or your corporate team at work or your family team, or maybe it's your pickup basketball team, right? It doesn't matter where. You can be instrumental in bringing the performance higher for all members of your team, whatever that looks like. So take that message in. Make sure you tune in next week for another Monday morning meditation, and let's hear about it. Tell me about what your experience of being on a team is like. Shoot us those messages, drop it in the comments, because we want to hear about it. All right, y'all. Peace and love.